When this billionaire faked blindness, his own children betrayed him. But what they didn't know, he saw everything. Watch till the end to see how it all unfolds, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful African stories. Now let's go into it. Mr. James was supposed to be asleep. That's what Michael and Daniel thought as they laughed in the living room, clinking soda bottles and whispering near the window. But Mr. James wasn't sleeping. He was in his room, sitting quietly, the door cracked open just enough to hear them. "You're sure he can't see anymore?" Daniel whispered. Michael scoffed. "Blind as a bat. He asked me if it was morning, and it was 3 in the afternoon. They both laughed. "Perfect," Daniel said. "This is our chance. We get him to sign over the company. Say it's just for paperwork," Michael added. "And when the papers are in our hands, we move him out. I already booked a room at Sunrise Care Home. Out of sight, out of the way." Mr. James felt his chest tighten. His sons weren't planning to help him. They were planning to erase him. The next morning, Mr. James called the only person he still trusted, Mrs. Helen, the housekeeper who raised him like a second mother. "I want to pretend to be blind," he said. Helen gasped. "What?" "I need to know who's with me, and who's waiting to bury me alive." She hesitated. "What if they hurt you?" Mr. James looked out the window. "Then at least I'll see the truth before I go." By noon, the plan was in motion. He wore dark glasses, used a cane, moved slowly. At the family breakfast, he made the announcement. "The doctor says I've lost my sight. I'm now blind," gasped. His daughter, Grace, jumped up. "No, Dad, are you sure?" "I can't see anything," he said, pretending to search the table. "Everything is dark." Michael and Daniel looked at each other. Michael said, "We'll figure something out. Just rest, Dad." But Mr. James could hear the relief in their voices. That night, Michael called someone outside the gate. Mr. James listened through the open window. "I need the care home contract ready by next Friday," Michael whispered. "Just tell Dad it's a medical checkup." Meanwhile, Grace had become his only true light. She made him tea, read him the newspaper, helped him walk even though he pretended to stumble. And his granddaughter Emma stayed close, always holding his hand and whispering, "Don't worry, Grandpa. I'll protect you." But the next twist came too soon. One afternoon, while Grace was out buying medicine, Mr. James overheard Michael on a phone call again. Only this time, he said something far worse. "I found the backup key to the office safe," Michael said. "Dad can't see me. I'll grab the business stamp and transfer the money to a new account." Mr. James nearly dropped his cup. They weren't just pushing him aside. They were planning to steal his life. That night, Mr. James met secretly with Mrs. Helen and handed her a flash drive. "Start recording," he said. "Everything. Conversations. Documents. I want evidence." "But sir," she began. "No, they're not just greedy anymore," he said. "They're dangerous." And then came a twist even Mr. James didn't see coming. The next morning, a woman in a shiny dress arrived at the house. "I'm Ms. Linda, the lawyer," she told Daniel at the gate. "For what?" Daniel asked. "For the new property title you asked me to prepare. You said Mr. James wanted the land in your name." Mr. James was standing nearby, pretending to stare into space. So they were planning to steal the house, too. Grace returned from the pharmacy just in time to overhear everything. She confronted Daniel. "You're stealing Dad's land?" Daniel smirked. "He's blind. He won't notice." "You think blindness means stupidity?" He walked away. Grace turned and looked at her father. He was still staring into the air, but something about his face told her. Maybe he was seeing more than he let on. Mr. James sat quietly in his armchair as the sun spilled through the curtains. His dark glasses hid his eyes. His hands held a cane he didn't need. Grace had just left for the pharmacy again. And once she was gone, the house changed. "Move your feet," Daniel snapped as he swept dust directly toward his father's legs. "I don't want to trip over you." Mr. James didn't move. He couldn't. Not because he was blind, but because he was furious. Michael walked in with a loud yawn, chewing gum. He waved a folder in front of his father. "Dad, we need to sign this electricity paper. The company needs your signature." Mr. James tilted his head. "Bring it closer, son. I can't see." "Oh, right," Michael said with a fake laugh. "My bad." He shoved the pen into his hand. But the papers weren't for electricity. They were bank documents. A quiet plan to drain the company account. Later that evening, Grace returned and found crumbs and wrappers around her father's chair. "Why hasn't anyone cleaned here?" she asked. "We're not babysitters," Daniel muttered. Grace looked at them sharply. "He's your father." Michael shrugged. "He doesn't even know what day it is. Why waste time?" Grace stormed into the kitchen, furious. Mr. James followed her voice with his ears. He wished he could hug her, but he needed to stay quiet, stay blind, just a little longer. That night, Mrs. Helen brought him dinner. She whispered, "I recorded the conversation with the lawyer, and the new one about the hidden account." Mr. James nodded. "Good. We'll need proof. I'm not fighting with fists this time. I'm fighting with truth." But he didn't know the worst was coming tomorrow. The next morning, Michael and Daniel had a visitor. A man in a cream suit with a briefcase. Mr. James listened from the sitting room. "That's the care home manager," Daniel whispered. "Let's not tell Grace," Michael replied. "She'll cry about it. He leaves this weekend." "Quietly, Mr." James clenched his fists. They were really doing it, throwing him away. The next day, Grace walked in on them packing boxes in her father's room. "What are you doing?" "Helping Dad move," Daniel said smoothly. "Where?" "To a place with more comfort," Michael added. "A care home," Grace shouted. "You're dumping him?" "He won't know," Michael said. "He's blind." That was the moment Mr. James wanted to scream, to tear off the glasses, to expose them all. But he didn't. He just bowed his head. "Maybe it's time," he whispered. Grace burst into tears and ran into her room. Emma followed quietly, holding her drawing book. The house was now packed with tension. Mrs. Helen gave Mr. James a sad look. "They've lost all shame, sir." "Let them," he replied. "The world will soon see what I've seen in the dark." 2 days later, Daniel and Michael stood by the gate as a white van pulled up. "Time to go, old man," Michael said. "No bags?" asked the care home driver. "We'll send them later," Daniel said. "He doesn't need much." Grace stood at the window watching, horrified. Emma cried softly into her drawing pad. Mr. James stood, slow and quiet. He allowed Daniel to take his arm. He let Michael slam the van door. He kept silent. But inside, he was planning, waiting, preparing. The trap was almost ready. That night, Grace confronted her brothers. "You really sent him away?" Michael sighed. "You're too emotional." "He's our father." Daniel pointed at her. "You don't know what we've done for this house. That company. He's old. We're just making room." Grace whispered, "You're not making room. You're making a mistake." She turned to Mrs. Helen. "We're going to get him back. But when we do, we'll make sure the whole world knows what they did." Back at the care home, Mr. James sat in a quiet chair by the window. The nurse handed him soup. "Nice family you have," she said. Mr. James gave a sad smile. "They don't know I can see." The nurse blinked. "You what?" He leaned closer and whispered, "Don't tell anyone. This is the best show I've ever seen." At Sunrise Elderly Home, Mr. James sat quietly in his room, still pretending to be blind. The nurses were kind. The food was tasteless. And every day felt like a lonely punishment. But Mr. James wasn't really here for rest. He was listening, recording, and waiting for his children to show their true colors. Back at home, they were doing exactly that. Grace entered the house and found Daniel sitting on her father's favorite chair, with his muddy feet resting on the center table. She frowned. "Where's Dad's chair cushion?" Daniel didn't even look up from his phone. "I gave it to the gateman." "What's an old man doing with soft pillows?" "He's not here." Grace clenched her fists. "That chair is special to him." Well, he's not special anymore, Daniel snapped. Meanwhile, Michael was busy. He had called a contractor to repaint the house. Not just repaint it, rebrand it. He removed all of Mr. James' family portraits from the walls. Throw them in the store, he told the cleaner. We need to make this house feel new. Sir, these look expensive, the cleaner whispered. Michael shrugged. Then sell them. He even changed the company's name behind everyone's back. From James Logistics to M&D Express. He forged the documents using the stamp he had tricked Mr. James into signing earlier. At the care home, Mrs. Helen visited secretly with a small laptop. Sir, I've been recording everything, she said, showing him hidden camera footage from the house. Mr. James watched Michael smile as he renamed the company. He saw Daniel bragging to friends about kicking out the old man. He even saw Emma crying in the hallway, asking, "When is Grandpa coming back?" Mr. James' hands shook on the table. "They have no shame," he muttered. "They've erased me before I've even died." Back at the house, things got uglier. Grace walked into the company office and noticed her name tag was missing from the employee list. She confronted Michael. "You removed me?" Michael didn't look up from his laptop. "You're too soft to be a manager." Grace stood tall. "You didn't even discuss it with Dad." "Dad's blind," Daniel said from the door. "We don't need his opinion." Grace stormed out. But she was no longer confused. She was ready. Meanwhile, Emma refused to eat. "I want Grandpa," she said. "No more Grandpa," Daniel snapped. "He's better off in that place." Emma whispered, "You're mean." Daniel pointed at her. "Keep talking and you'll join him." Grace heard it from the kitchen and ran in. "Enough," she yelled. "She's a child." Daniel shoved a chair. "This is our house now, Grace. Stop acting like you're in charge." But Grace wasn't scared anymore. She had a plan too. That night, Grace called Mrs. Helen. "We can't wait until the reveal," she whispered. "They're destroying everything." Mrs. Helen replied, "Hold on. He wants the truth to finish cooking. The more they burn the pot, the more smoke we'll have when we serve the dish." The next morning, a delivery truck arrived. Daniel ran outside, excited. Boxes of electronics were being dropped off. "Who ordered these?" Grace asked. "I did," Daniel said, smiling. "Company expense." "With Dad's money?" "It's our money now." Daniel began setting up a home theater in Mr. James' bedroom. He had officially moved into his father's room. He threw out the old bedsheets, the family Bible, even the framed photo of Mr. James and Grace's late mother. Grace picked up the broken frame from the floor. Her heart cracked. Across town, Mr. James sat by the window at the care home. He had heard nothing from his sons in days. But that morning, the nurse brought him a letter. From his own company. The top read, "You have been removed as company founder." Mr. James stared at it. They had officially deleted his name. He held the paper tight in his hand. Then he stood up strong and steady. "It's time," he whispered. The revenge was almost ready. At this point, nothing felt sacred anymore. Mr. James had officially been erased. His name gone from the company records. His pictures burned or boxed up. His house occupied by the same sons who were now laughing in the master bedroom, treating it like a hotel suite. But the worst was still coming. "Guess what?" Daniel said one morning, sliding a file across the breakfast table to Michael. "I just had a brilliant idea." Michael flipped it open. "What's this?" "A power of attorney form," Daniel grinned. "If we can get Dad to stamp this, it gives us full legal control over his personal assets, not just the business." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Didn't we already fake his signature on the company change?" Daniel shook his head. "This one's more serious. Once we control his bank account, we can sell that side plot of land he always said was for the future. We'll never have to work again." Grace walked in and heard just enough. "Power of what?" she asked sharply. Michael quickly shut the file. "Nothing. Just business stuff." "With Dad's name on it?" she pressed. "Grace," Daniel said mockingly. If you want to keep being poor and loyal, that's your choice. But don't get in the way. She stared at them, eyes narrowed. Don't you think this has gone too far? Michael smiled coldly. No. In fact, we're just getting started. Meanwhile, back at Sunrise elderly home, Mr. James stared out the window as a pigeon landed on the sill. He held his phone tightly in one hand, his other hand clenched into a fist. Mrs. Helen had just delivered the news. They were trying to sell the family land. Not just any land, the same plot he had hidden for Emma's future. The same land where he'd once carved her name into a tree trunk when she was a baby. Mr. James stood up slowly, rage bubbling beneath his calm voice. No more waiting, he told Helen. We prepare for war. But sir, she said, you said chapter 5. Mr. James nodded. And this is the final chapter of their foolishness. I just need to let them burn the last bridge themselves. At the house, Daniel called a property agent. The land is clean. The papers are ready. The owner, let's just say he won't be asking questions. He laughed into the phone. Across the hall, Emma was playing quietly, but her little ears picked up the word land. She tiptoed into Grace's room. Auntie Grace, she whispered. Uncle Daniel said they're selling Grandpa's land. Grace froze. Are you sure? Emma nodded. They called someone. They said Grandpa can't stop them. Grace stormed into the hallway and found the folder left carelessly on the table. She opened it, and her heart dropped. They weren't just selling the land. They were selling the entire property line, the front compound, the garden, the old well, the tree Grandpa planted when she was born. And they had marked it as abandoned assets, with a fake signature. Grace ran into her room and called Mrs. Helen. They've crossed the line, she whispered. They're taking everything. Good, Helen replied, because tomorrow, the line disappears. The next morning, Michael and Daniel dressed in suits and headed out to finalize the land deal. We'll have the money in the account by sunset, Daniel said proudly. Then we get rid of the nurse, Michael added, and send a letter to the care home to make Dad unreachable. We'll tell them we moved abroad. They thought they were clever. They thought they had won. But what they didn't know was that every step, every word, every signature had been watched, recorded, documented. And tomorrow, Mr. James would walk back into the house they tried to erase him from. Not blind, not broken, but burning with truth. It was a bright Sunday afternoon. Guests filled the compound of the James family home, or as the new sign above the gate now read, M&D Express Estate. Daniel and Michael had organized a family appreciation event, inviting local business partners, friends, and even a few journalists. Their goal? To publicly announce that they were now the official faces of the family empire. What they didn't know, it would be the last time anyone believed them. In the crowd, people clapped politely as Michael took the stage with a microphone. My brother and I, he said, beaming, have stepped up in a time of crisis. When our father sadly lost his sight, we took charge of the company, the land, the house, the future, Daniel added. The audience clapped again. Then a quiet voice from the back said, What future? All heads turned. Gasps. Mouths dropped open. Mr. James was standing at the gate. No cane. No dark glasses. Eyes wide open. He was not blind. He was never blind. Michael dropped the mic. Daniel stumbled off the stage. Emma ran out from the crowd, screaming, Grandpa! And threw her arms around him. Grace walked beside him, proud and fierce. Mrs. Helen followed, holding a laptop and a small speaker. Mr. James stepped up to the front. The crowd parted like water. He climbed the stage without help, took the mic, paused, and looked around at every single face. Some of you may be confused, he began. You were told I had gone blind. You were told I had handed over everything. He took off his wristwatch and placed it on the podium. I lied about the blindness, the crowd murmured. But I had to, because blindness was the only way I could see the truth. He looked directly at Michael and Daniel, who were frozen at the side. I wanted to know who loved me as a man, not as a bank. He turned to the audience. These two, he said, pointing at his sons, pushed me out of my home, erased my name, forged my signature, and tried to sell land meant for my granddaughter's future. Gasps erupted. Some people started recording with their phones. Mr. James raised his hand. Mrs. Helen? She walked forward and pressed a button. A hidden speaker played audio for the crowd to hear. He's blind. He won't even know we're selling the land. We'll forge the last signature. By the time he dies, we'll be rich. Let's move him to that care home and cut off contact. The voices were clear. Michael's and Daniel's. Unmistakable. The crowd went silent. Shame dripped from every corner of the compound. Mr. James stepped closer to his sons. I gave you my name, my roof, my blood, and you treated me like expired bread. Daniel began to cry. Dad, we were greedy. Mr. James interrupted. You were greedy, and now you will reap the reward. He pulled out a new document. I have updated my will. As of today, Grace is the CEO of James Logistics. Emma owns the family home. Mrs. Helen is rewarded with lifetime housing and a full pension. And you too. He turned to Michael and Daniel. You are cut off. No access. No money. Nothing. The guests clapped. Some slowly, some with tears in their eyes. Michael fell to his knees. Daniel turned and ran out of the compound in shame. Emma tugged on her grandfather's sleeve. Grandpa, are you okay now? He lifted her into his arms. Now I am. Later that night, as the compound grew quiet and the guests went home, Mr. James sat under the mango tree where it all began. Grace brought him tea. Clara sat beside him, holding his hand. Emma lay on his lap, half asleep, holding the golden pendant he had once carved her name into. I thought I lost my family, he whispered. But you didn't, Grace said softly. You just lost the ones who didn't deserve to stay. In the end, it wasn't blindness that opened Mr. James' eyes. It was betrayal, patience, and love. And through it all, he discovered that the truest family isn't made of blood, but of loyalty. Not all who claim to love you truly do. In dark times, those who stand beside you reveal who they are. True loyalty speaks louder than words, and greed always exposes itself. If the story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe.